Alright, welcome to the CR500 chopper video. We got this really slick lowrider chopper here with a nice raked out front end, super low rear end. The frame is only about 2 inches from touching the ground. It's going to be a really cool, sleek, low-riding chopper thing. Well, in case you guys hadn't realized yet, that's all a joke, but there's going to be somebody who's going to post a comment that's going to say something really silly like, "I can't believe you're doing that to such a harmless bike." Well, no, it's actually going to become a street racer. I just have the wrong shock on the back. The shock that's on the back currently is a ZX10 shock. It took a little bit of help to get it mounted up here in the top, and the bolt down below in the bottom. I stuck it in the linkage just to see what it would look like. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of extending on it. Now this option was a hell of a lot cheaper than getting a CR250 shock revalved and resprung. Something to the tune of $500 to $700, whereas the ZX10 shock cost me about a whole $35. It just happens to clear everything through the linkage and all. So it's going to look really good. The reservoir just barely fits up underneath the subframe here, so it just made it. Of course, once the clearance is altered a little bit here on the rear end, it's going to bring the shock closer to the frame, and that is going to open up even wider yet. It's not going to have enough travel, of course, to get down this far once I get to that point. But there it is. It actually rolls on its own now without collapsing. So it's a lot easier to push it around the garage. I can lean it against something rather than having parts all over the place. It doesn't even need the stands anymore. What I have right now is just hooked up as a little dirt bike stand that you stick in the axle. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit in the rear axle, but it does fit in the Gixxer front end, so we shoved them on in there. Yes, I know the brake line is on the wrong side of the forks, and I got a little excited the other night. I hooked it up in a hurry, and that's how it turned out. But I'm very happy with what we've got here. I'm going to see about getting some more work done on it over the weekend, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the rear sets yet, as well as how I'm going to get that shock lengthened, but I'll get something figured out. We're gonna build a billet extension or something that either will be welded onto the bottom of it or it'll be bolted to it. But I think I'll probably elect to bolt it because it's a lot easier to switch out a ZX10 shock with another ZX10 shock or even a ZX14 shock. I think the 636 shocks are very similar. The Gixxer shocks are similar. SV650 shocks are very similar. So it'd be nice if I could just switch them out with an adapter. So we're going to try to whip up some type of adapter that can extend the bottom of it. The front wheel's got an interesting story behind it. It's a CBR F3 wheel, which is the same as a VFR 750 wheel. The front bearings in there, I believe front axle bearings were 20 millimeter, but the Gixxer front axle is 1 inch or 25 millimeters. So the bearings had to be swapped out. It was really hard finding the right bearings, but lo and behold, to my surprise, the same bearings that go in the front wheel of the CR250 happen to work in the front wheel of the F3, and they fit with the GSXR axle. So that all works together. Now the front brake calipers on there are actually from a CBR 1100XX Blackbird, and the holes on them almost lined up with the F3 wheels. These are late generation Blackbird discs, whereas the earlier generation actually is a direct bolt up to this wheel. But they were off by, I think the bolt hole diameter was like 2 millimeters off. So what we did was we had bolt holes drilled in between the old bolt holes and fit them together with some nice stainless steel bolts. Got that all Loctited together, so that works out really good. And it all fits onto the Gixxer front end. Now the rear wheel also has an interesting story, because the rear wheel is a CBR F2 rear wheel. And the reason why I chose an F2 rear wheel as opposed to an F3 is because it's a little bit more narrow, and that was important. I had to fit a 150 tire on here, and that chain coming off of the rear sprocket, as you can see, comes really close to that tire. In fact, it just barely clears it. So I'm probably going to have to put a little roller over there just to be sure that the chain stays out of the tire from chewing it up. But the cush drive and sprocket carrier had to have a lot of material machined off of it. And the wheel also had to have a lot of material machined off of it to move all of this inwards more. The work that was done by Adam Booth at Booth Machine was just absolutely marvelous. Everything works together really good. It retained the cush drive, which I think is really important for street driving to save a lot of wear and tear on the transmission up front. But the cush drive rubbers need to be cut down, I think half of an inch or so, and then they'll put in there and they'll retain their factory function for what they're supposed to do. Now on the other side, that is an R6 rear caliper from a Yamaha. As you know, it's a CR125 swing arm, CBR F2 rear wheel, and a Yamaha R6 caliper. And you might say, why did you choose an R6 caliper as opposed to just putting on a regular CR125 or 250 caliper, which actually would probably just about fit on there? Well, the fact is, I had that sitting in my parts bin, and it was such a close fit that it only needed a little bit of machining on the caliper bracket to make it fit. So we put that right in there. Coincidentally, the R6 rear disc is the same outside diameter as the CBR F2 rear disc. So I didn't even have to take off the F2 rear disc. It's just going to work as is. Clearances are all really, really tight on there, but all in all, she spins. Everything's nice.